What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian from House of Rasslin, and this is my review for the March 23rd episode of AEW Dynamite. Like, share, comment, subscribe to House of Wrestling on all social media platforms, and follow me, Dedrian180, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Tonight's AEW Dynamite, it started off very strong. I'll get to the main event towards the end. I really didn't care too much for the main event. It just felt like it was a rehash of AEW when it started in 2019 and right before the pandemic, in regards to the Pinnacle and just that whole thing. Man, it just feels AEW has so much talent for what was the main event tonight to be the main event. And it's not a shot at the wrestlers from the Dark Order or anything like that, but it just feels like Jericho gets the spotlight too much when other wrestlers should be getting it. And AEW is too deep for it to keep going, for it to go back to a trope that they needed back in 2019 and early 2020, but they don't necessarily need right now. We'll get to that later, but man, it started off with a fantastic match between CM Punk and Dax Harwood of FTR. This was a clinic. This was amazing. Shout out to the I believe they were in Austin, Texas tonight. That crowd was hot for everything. In spite of a few things that I really didn't care for, that crowd was cheering for everything. So it was good to watch on TV, but what happened in the ring, especially in the main event, it is. But yeah, this match, CM Punk, Dax Harwood, man, it was a clinic. Dax Harwood, man, if that guy does not wrestle like Arn Anderson, man, this was a really solid match. I recommend you guys go watch this match. For me, I would say, yeah, I would say it was the match of the night. Dax Harwood, he came out with the AAA tag team title belt. Man, it was a very technical match. These are just I'm reading off a few notes that I have about this match. There was a nice spot where he did a superplex. Man, that was a thing of beauty. I remember back in the day, Barry Windham was notorious for doing superplex, but it was a work of art to see Barry Windham do the superplex, and Dax Harwood did it. Shout out to CM Punk. Man, those guys did that move so good. It was like, ooh, man, this is good. There was a ton of counters, but it wasn't for the sake of counters. It was very good. It was just a very technical counters from both CM Punk and Dax Harwood, where, again, you didn't know who was going to win. You kind of felt that CM Punk was going to win, but the way the match went, it was like, CM Punk might actually lose this match, which is what I've said on previous reviews before. When you have wrestling matches where you kind of know who's going to win, but during the match, you're like, man, I don't know if who's really going to win this match. That's when you got a really good wrestling match. Dax Harwood, he performed the sharpshooter with Bret Hart. That's another thing. There has been these subtle hints of Bret Hart. AEW's been hinting the best there is, the best in the world. It really feels like Bret Hart is eventually arriving in AEW, and if he is the manager of the FTR, I'm all for it. I don't know what's going to happen next week when the Pinnacle somewhat reunite. That was later on with MJF. I'll get to that. But yeah, this was a fantastic match. CM Punk performed the Anaconda Vice for the win. Weird thing, the Ass Boys. It's fun. Ass Boys. the Gun Club, Billy Gunn's sons, were at ringside, and they were somewhat trying to antagonizing Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, who eventually came down at ringside. But they really weren't a big factor in the match. But it was more like, okay, we kind of see that there's going to be something between Cash Wheeler, FTR, and the Gun Club, or what many have called them, the Ass Boys, and what the crowd tonight called them. But no, this was a really good match. I recommend you guys watch this match. It was a clinic. Now looking back, I wish this match would have closed the show. And that's the issue I have with tonight's Dynamite. The first match should have been the main event, and the last match should have been the first match. Because trust me, if you watch this episode all the way through, you may not agree with me, but you're going to understand where I'm coming from, because the first match was the best match of the night. Then we had a backstage segment with the Jericho Appreciation Society. I'm trying to figure out what this faction reminds me of. It doesn't remind me of the Hart Foundation, but it's almost like a watered down version of the Inner Circle. And it's almost like they've changed the members, but they're kind of redoing what they did with the Inner Circle from the first AEW Dynamite. And it just, typical promo, Jericho tonight. They showed a picture of Jericho and John Silver, many years ago. And, it's typical AEW. It's like, all right, that's fun. Maybe because I've seen John Silver and Alex Reynolds, I was expecting more out of the main event. Forgive me, guys. It's just the main event was the main crawl with tonight. Most of the show was really good, but it's just that main event really, it wasn't it. It wasn't it. And it wasn't more so, it wasn't because of Daniel Garcia, John Silver, Alex Reynolds. It was because of Chris Jericho, and it just comes across like Inner Circle 2.0. It doesn't feel like it's a variation or it's something totally different and opposite of the Inner Circle. It just feels like it's the same thing. And maybe it's because they still play the same music. Judas in my mind. They need to change the music. So then we go to one of the funnest matches of the night. You had the best match of the night with CM Punk and Dax Harwood, and you had the funnest match of the night. Sting, Darby Allin, the Hardys, Private Party, Butcher and Blade in a tornado tag. I like this for the simple fact AEW has had numerous 8-man tag matches, and they had it basically normal tag rules, but the way it played out, it was like a tornado tag. I like this because they said it's a tornado tag. Okay, normally when AEW's had 8-man tag, again, it was just all over the place. This made sense because the rules made it where it wasn't supposed to make sense. It was just supposed to be chaotic. I don't even know where to start with this, man. Darby and Sting, they started off like Sting jumped. What's Sting? Darby Allin did his dive through the ropes. Sting, at 63 years old, happy birthday, Sting. Your birthday was a couple days ago. He jumps, oh my God, from the turnbuckle onto the Private Party. They fight through the crowd. Was it Darby Allin got thrown down the stairs by the Butcher? Jeff Hardy and I believe the Blade were fighting through the concourse level. They're cutting back and forth through shots, and you get Sting, Darby Allin, the Butcher, and I believe the Blade and Jeff Hardy in the concourse area. And Jeff Hardy sets up a ladder. He climbs up the ladder. Then he climbs up one of the beams, and he does a swanton bomb onto the tables, which I thought was the coolest spot. It looked like he didn't hurt himself. I'm glad that they put 2 tables instead of 1, where Matt Hardy, remember a few years ago, he hurt himself. Sting and Jeff Hardy and Darby, they come back to the ring. Sting and Matt Hardy have, I believe, one of the members from Private Party and one of the members from Butcher and the Blade. Sting does the Scorpion Death Drop. Matt Hardy does the Twist of Fate. 1, 2, 3. That is the match. That was a fun match. That is another match I recommend you guys go watch. It was a fun match. It wasn't supposed to be so serious, but it did its job. It built on top of whatever CM Punk or what CM Punk and Dax Harwood did. It just added on to like, okay, man, this is a fun show. And man, the momentum for this show just kept on growing and growing and growing, where it's like, okay, AEW's hitting the groove. AEW is hitting the groove. I like this. Then from there, we get Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley with William Regal versus the Varsity Blondes. I'm not going to say it wasn't bad or anything. This was basically a good solid match. Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr., they got their offense in. The one takeaway from this match, and it had nothing to do with William Regal, Bryan Danielson, and Jon Moxley, Julia Hart. She was at ringside with her patch, and she was looking off into the crowd, sitting on the staircase. Something very interesting that commentary made a note of, and they're like, man, she's like looking off into the distance. You know, she's never been the same since the Malachi Black spilled the venom or whatever it is that he calls it. That was very interesting. William Regal, he was on commentary. AEW needs to put William Regal on commentary more often. He was so, like, he doesn't scream. He just analyzes and just gives his authentic opinion, which is very refreshing. They did mention how William Regal and Brian Pillman Sr. were friends, and William Regal mentioned that, yes, we were good friends, but we were better foes. I don't know if they were hinting towards Brian Pillman eventually joining Pillman and Moxley, or Moxley and Bryan Danielson. I wouldn't mind it if Brian Pillman eventually joins Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley and William Regal. That might be really cool. There are a few AEW wrestlers, just not to take away from the review, but there are quite a few AEW wrestlers who need a character change, uplift, and just a switch. There's certain wrestlers who were faces that need to be heels, and there's certain heels that need to turn face. And Brian Pillman is one of those guys that need to go. He needs to be a tweener. He has an attitude, but it's just something has to get him to that next level. But we'll see. Then we get a promo by MJF. He basically talks about CM Punk, how he'll piss on his grave. Then you get he talks about Wardlow and how he still works for him. He doesn't. He's not signed to AEW. He signed to him. At this time, while MJF is, giving this promo with Sean Spears, he has security guards up front, blocking the entrance ramp. Wardlow tries to come in. He tries to, he beats the hell out of all the security guards. MJF tells him no. He walks away. Pretty interesting. Not bad. This was expected. It's going to be interesting where this goes because MJF mentioned that Wardlow does not have an AEW contract, but he's still contracted by MJF. MJF really said he took some jabs at Wardlow and his family and everything. Like, you got to check that out. Like, that was like, damn. Whew, MJF is ruthless, man. From there, MJF did mention that the Pinnacle isn't over. I believe the FTR is going to be an action, next week. The key thing about this is that the FTR promo and what MJF said were totally different. FTR came across like faces, and of course MJF is a heel. So I don't know what's going to transpire because FTR did fire Tully Blanchard, and Tully Blanchard was basically the person that, assembled the Pinnacle. So that's going to be very interesting if that plays into what happens with the Pinnacle next week. It's going to be very interesting. Then we get a backstage segment with Will Yuta. Him and Trent Beretta kind of go back and forth, and Trent Beretta's like, I never liked you. These guys trained you, and now you want to take off with Moxley and Bryan Danielson and Regal. And Will Yuta's like, well, I'm not here to be anyone's best friend. I'm here to be the best wrestler. And it's like, ooh, Will Yuta's getting some grit. This is going to be interesting. So we'll see where that goes next week. I like it. Again, this is something, it's fresh. It's new. It's like, okay, where is this going to go? And I am interested in it. Then we get the match between Adam Cole and Jay Lethal. This was a fun match. If you remember their stuff that they did in Ring of Honor, you're going to like this. It was basically it felt like a Ring of Honor type match. Just the way the pacing, the flow. Adam Cole still gets one of the biggest pops in AEW. It's only a matter of time before he's AEW World Champion. This was a really cool match. There was a loud, like the whole night, the crowd was, electric. But during this match, there was loud Adam Cole, Jay Lethal chants. It was split back and forth. That was pretty fun. I like that the crowd was split. I do have some reservations as far as Jay Lethal. There's just some reservations. He's a good wrestler, but it's just certain things surrounding him that's just like, it is what it is. But it was a really solid match. Redragon came out. Jay Lethal performed a figure 4. He tried to perform the lethal injection, and Adam Cole kicked the hell out of him. That was a nasty super kick. He did the Panama Sunrise on Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal kicked out. It was like, okay. And that right there, I felt the match should have ended right there because eventually Adam Cole wins. He does get a low blow because Redragon interfered, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. Low blows, pins him 1, 2, 3. Adam Cole wins. Adam Cole calls out Hangman Page that he's not the fighting champion. He deserves a title. Hangman Page comes out. He takes off his cowboy belt and he whips them. And I felt that because those cowboy belts aren't, thin. They're pretty thick, man. And he whacked. It was like, ooh, I felt that. So he's battling Adam Cole and Redragon. They beat him up. And then Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy and Christian Cage come out and help make the save. I tweeted this. I hope they do it. Christian Cage fits more Adam Cole and Redragon than he does with Luchasaurus and Bobby Fish or Jungle Boy. I hope Christian Cage turns heel and aligns himself with Adam Cole. Adam Cole doesn't need a mouthpiece, but just their character and just that comedic time, like he fits with them. Then we get a promo between Lance Archer and Dustin Rhodes. They're going to be fighting on AEW Rampage this Friday. I'm looking forward to it. What I liked about this promo is that these guys haven't fought since the pandemic. And when they were shooting in, I believe, the Nightmare Factory's facility, that's how long it's been. It was like, whoa, that's a throwback. I forgot that. Whoa. Nice callback by AEW. That was really good. Then you get another promo in the ring from Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti. Sammy Guevara is basically saying, hey, I don't care what people think. I'm going to bust my ass in this ring and I'm going to entertain you. They're interrupted by Dan Lambert and Ethan Page. And I tweeted this, and I've said this before. Last week, the whole thing with Dan Lambert's promos, what I am not liking and it's not entertaining is he somehow always has to sexualize a promo. There has to be some type of sexual reference or what have you. Mind you, that was cool back in the late 90s, early 2000s. But we are in 2022. You could do better. That's all I'm going to say. You could do better. AEW, you can do better than this. It was kind of like, oh wow, when he first came out and saying he did his promo, I was like, oh damn, okay, this is different. But now we're talking about July when he first debuted, when Malachi Black debuted. Yeah, that was July. So July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. 9 months. He's been there 9 months and he's still cutting the same type of promos. And it's not entertaining. I know a few weeks, actually last month. Yeah, the last time Brandy Rhodes was on TV, when he cut that promo in Chicago, the ratings dipped when he was on TV. So I don't know what agreement they have with Dan Lambert, but I really wish AEW and Tony Khan really fixes some things because it is not entertaining. His tone and the way he sounds when he gives a promo, it's catchy, but the substance of his promo is not entertaining. I'm not saying not all of it, but it's just certain aspects of his promo is not entertaining, and those sexual references is as soon as he says it, just like I'm out. It doesn't draw me like, oh my god, that's because I mean you can insult somebody without going to that degree, especially with it being scripted. Like it's just tacky. But it was funny when towards the end of his promo he kisses TNT title and Sammy and Tay are like, if you only knew what we did when we wore that title, and he spitting and everything. He's like, yeah, that's why you shouldn't be kissing everything because one, we're still in the pandemic and there's stuff flying around. Like, need to clean stuff, buddy. So yeah, that was that segment. Then we get a promo. Man, I'm looking forward to this Friday. Swerve Strickland, Ricky Starks, Rampage. That is going to be a dope match. Both those guys can talk. Again, AEW. You got these two guys on Rampage. I see that it's their show. It's AEW Rampage is now. I'm starting to see that it's starting to see Swerve Strickland's show, which is cool. I love his entrance, but they like. I'll get to the main event. I'm getting close, but it's those two guys that. Granted, I don't mind them being on Rampage, but they should be on Dynamite because they can go. From there, we get Layla Hirsch versus Red Velvet in a match. Again, this is one thing that I'm kind of disappointed in. AEW should be adding these women. All these women that they have on their roster, most of them should be in the factions that they have going. Someone should be in the Pinnacle. Someone already should be with the William Regal, John Moxley, Bryan Danielson faction. Britt Baker should already be established with Adam Cole and Redragon. Who else? It's interesting who you could add to the Hardys. That's interesting. But like, you need to freshen it up, man. They right now AEW does need to add more depth to the women's division. But this match, it was pretty cool. I tweeted this. She's not there yet, but Red Velvet reminds me of when Sasha Banks started in NXT. If William Regal can get a hold, can train Red Velvet and Bryan Danielson, AEW could potentially have their Sasha Banks in Red Velvet. She's got the attitude. She's got a fun personality. She's got a great following on social media. She's very charismatic. There's just some things in the ring she just got to work on and everything. Not go too fast and everything, but she's good. But this match was pretty decent. Layla Hirsch, I like that she's starting to cheat and has these turnbuckles and stuff like that. In the match, she tried to use a turnbuckle. Didn't work. Referee got it. She had a turnbuckle in her tights. Hit Red Velvet, 1, 2, 3. That was it. She starts beating up Red Velvet. Then Chris Statlander. She shows up, and she is in all black. I like this look. She looks good. She looks like $1 million. It's going to be interesting, the match that she has. But, again, the AEW Women's Division does need more depth. I hope Tony Khan brings Maria Kanellis, who was helping the Ring of Honor Women's Division. And before they took a hiatus, like that Women's Division was really good. They were putting on some quality matches. In spite of it being an empty arena, they put on some really quality matches. Shout out to Maria Kanellis for the work she did with Ring of Honor, but AEW needs to improve on that. Then we get a backstage promo with Jade Cargill. She's basically saying, her next match is going to be 30-0. She tells Mark Sterling, and there's to be money raining down. There needs to be Lamborghinis. There needs to be exotic dancers. There needs to be everything for celebrating and everything. It was a fun promo, pumping up Jade Cargill. Hopefully she shows up on Rampage. I can't remember if they announced it, but I hope. It's fun watching her on TV, and when she beats the hell out of people, it's just fun. Then they announced that next week, Darby Allin and Andrade El Idolo will be facing each other on Dynamite. That's going to be a fun main event, or not main event, match. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's the main event. It should be. That's going to be really good right there. Then we get an onstage promo with Thunder Rosa, Vicky Guerrero. Again, it's... how do I put it? This is okay as far as, Thunder Rosa coming out, but like the Vicky Guerrero, excuse me. She was screaming. You kind of knew that somebody was going to interrupt. Nyla Rose attacks again, and Joe Pearl, he brought this up. Joe Pearl from Fightful. He brought this up, and I really didn't think about this. Seems like every world champion or women's champion first defense is Nyla Rose. It's not take away anything from Nyla Rose, but again, this goes back to my point with the Layla Hirsch Red Velvet match. AEW needs to add more depth to the women's division, and they need to structure it. They need more depth. They need more fresh faces because it's starting to get, I don't want to say stale, but it reminds me of when you had a, was it like a Raw versus SmackDown game, or a 2K 12 or 13, or was it 15 or something like that, when you had like a limited amount of women wrestlers on the game, and it's like, man, there's like 9 or 10 more women wrestlers that we see on TV, but the video game only gives me like 7 or 8. That's what it feels like with AEW. Like, we're only seeing like 7 or 8 women, but it's like, man, there should be more. Like, we should be seeing more. But I mean, let's see what happens. But yeah, there needs to be more fresh faces in the women's division, and like, there should have been more matches. Then we get to the main event: Alex Reynolds and John Silver of the Dark Order versus Jericho and Daniel Garcia. Hoo boy. So Jericho comes out to Judas, his Judas song that he had when he was with the Inner Circle. This main event really didn't do it for me. Nothing drew me to be invested. You kind of knew that the Jericho Appreciation Society were going to win. In the beginning of the show, when Jericho gave his promo after the CM Punk Dax Harwood match, it kind of felt like Eddie Kingston and Santana Ortiz were going to show up. It was somewhat subtly implied, not heavily, but Jericho and Daniel Garcia win. Again, this match really did not do anything for me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I've watched Dynamite since the beginning. It's an old trope to have Jericho be in the main event. And I tweeted that. It's something that in 2019, when they established the Inner Circle on the first episode of Dynamite, right before the pandemic, it was okay. It was cool for Jericho to be, the main event because one, he was the world champion. Jericho is not the world champion now, so why is he main eventing Dynamite? Like he should have been. This should have been the first match, unless they're gonna feud with Bryan Daniels or Jon Moxley. But again, this should not have been the main event. Either CM Punk and Dax Harwood or Sting. Actually, Sting, Darby Allin, and the Hardys should have been the main event. This should have been in the middle of the show. This made no sense whatsoever being the main event. The crowd was into it. The crowd cheered, but it really did. It did nothing for this show, and for me personally, it did nothing for me. I hope they change the song for Jericho because it really doesn't make sense on a number of reasons why he should still have that song. One, the Inner Circle is no more. And that's kind of it's tied to the Inner Circle. So it's like, okay, it's not the Inner Circle, it's the Jericho Appreciation. So, okay, change it up. Do something like what Edge did. Edge didn't want people to cheer him, so he changed his music. I get that they're going by the sports entertainer thing, but it really felt so damn vanilla. As far as it was just basic, it was bland. It wasn't anything that you're like, okay, man, what's going to happen next week? This was just like, okay, Jericho's in the main event. He's getting his shine. His guys are there. Okay. Again, it's just like it's repeating what the Inner Circle did in the beginning. It was just a repeat. All they did was change Santana Ortiz and Sammy Guevara with 2.0 and Daniel Garcia and whatever 2.0 goes by. But basically, that's what it was. It just felt that way. And Jericho wasn't the heavyweight champion, but it didn't do anything for me. And AEW needs to be very careful because WWE is getting a lot of, I don't want to say traction, but a lot of talk because of the Cody Rhodes impending arrival and everything. And you can't afford to end Dynamites and Rampages like the one tonight. We have a great roster. Okay, you have a great roster, but utilize it. And that's where I'm coming from. And like I said earlier in this video, like, okay, Jericho has a new faction, but why is he main eventing when you have Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky, who's the TNT champion, wasn't on the show? You got Keith Lee. You got all these guys that you signed and you have on your roster. Why? You had MJF. You had Wardlow, Sean Spears. I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, this show, realistically, I can say this show was good up until the Sammy Guevara, Tay Conti, Dan Lambert promo. And that's happened numerous of times where the show was flowing, and then if it wasn't Dan Lambert or a Chris Jericho segment, it was good. But the moment a Chris Jericho, Dan Lambert segment showed, was happening, that's when the vibe of the show just went, it got flat. And I'm sorry, I got to be honest. I got to be objective. I love AEW. I enjoy AEW more than WWE. But tonight, I'm sorry. As soon as it got to that Dan Lambert part of the Sammy Guevara Tay Conti program, because I don't want to say that, it's because Tay Conti and Sammy Guevara, the show just, the vibe went down. Like, no. the start of Sammy Guevara's promo with Tay Conti was dope. It was like, okay, they said the words, and it was like, oh, if they just ended it right there, it's like, all right, cool. But the moment Dan Lambert came out and just started, it's like, oh, God, it's so, like, and I wouldn't be surprised if the ratings dipped when he got on there, because it's been happening for the longest. But, I mean, that's my thing with AEW. It was a good show. CM Punk, Dax Harwood, check that out. Sting, Darby Allin, the Hardys versus the Private Party, Butcher and the Blade, Tornado Tag Match. Check that out. Other than that, again, once Dan Lambert came to the Sammy Guevara, Tay Conti promo, that's when the show just kind of just went flat. The show was good up until that point. Up until Dan Lambert came out, show went flat. That's just how I feel, and that's how I got to call it. Like, the show was good, but it just went flat. And can't wait for a Rampage. Swerve Strickland and Ricky Starks. I'm looking forward to that. So this is my review for the March 23rd episode of AEW Dynamite. Like, share, comment, subscribe, follow House of Wrestling on all social media platforms. Follow me, Dedrian180, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you guys so much to the new subscribers. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoy the content. Like I end every video, stop fighting over wrestling. There's so much wrestling going to be happening the next month, or actually the next couple of weeks. Enjoy it. It's going to be fun. We're going to get some new things in the WWE that hopefully goes upward. AEW's got some new things. Hopefully not what happened tonight or what have you, but it's going to be fun. Ring of Honor and all that stuff. Impact Wrestling and Mickie James and Deonna Purrazzo's tomorrow. That's going to be fun. Enjoy wrestling, all right? Stop fighting over wrestling, all right? There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. Just enjoy it, all right? With that,